Good morning, I'm Tricia Bear, and today we're going to meet with Kendall Spears from KIBOIS. And good morning, Kendall.
Good morning.
He is out of Muskogee. Can you give me a little information about your background?
About my personal background?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I originally started I'm married. I've got 4 kids, and then I started in human services with the Creek Nation Behavioral Health about 20 years ago, and then from there I went to Green Country Behavioral Health, and then I also found the job at KIBOIS, and then my sister-in-law had worked at KIBOIS for a long time, and then so what I did is I applied for the job, and surprisingly I got the job. And what it is, it's what I found out about the job, it helps veterans that are homeless or at risk of becoming homeless.
Okay, and SSVF, they fall up under KIBOIS, is that correct?
Yes, it is a grant that is funded by the VA. We are not the VA, but we are grant funded by the VA. So
okay.
It's just many of the programs that KIBOIS has. KIBOIS is based out of Stigler, Oklahoma, and so that's where the headquarters is. So we have a plethora of programs such as SSVF. We have CATS, and that's for our transportation. We also have the disabilities, developmental disabilities program. We have the weatherization program, and now not to be confused with Deep Fork Community Action. Deep Fork Community Action here in Henryetta has all those programs as well, but we kind of touch the areas that has the greatest need. And so SSVF, it's been around since 2009, but we received the grant in 2013.
All right. To make a referral to the KIBOIS program, what phone number and address can veterans call to ask for assistance?
Sure. Our main office is in, like you said, it's in Muskogee, and 918-681-7525 is the number to call if you have a veteran that is experiencing homelessness or at risk of becoming homeless.
Okay, and then you said it was 918-681-7525?
Yes.
Okay. So that's where they call to see if they need any assistance and see if there's anything they can provide for them.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. What are some of the veteran or veteran-specific services offered to veterans through the SSVF and KIBOIS program? So,
of course, the first thing is you've got to be 1-day active duty service. Okay. So that's quite of a stretch from traditional VA services. So traditional VA services is 6 months to a year. So we can take that. They're kind of liberal with the way that they structured our program. So 1-day active duty service, and that's any branch of military that's qualified. And so homeless so you've got homeless or at risk. That's the first criteria, and then the second criteria is income based. It's an income based program. And then you got the area median income, and then you got the veteran status, and then those are the main qualifications. And then we can also help veteran family members as well.
Okay. One of the requirements is that veterans must be very low income, which is less than 50% of the area median income. So, like, for example, for Henryetta or Oklahomans or Muskogee, how much does that have to be?
Well, actually, now HUD. So let me explain that we're under the umbrella of a couple of programs. So we got the VA, of course. They're the ones that funds the program. Then we're under the guidelines of HUD. So we are also a HUD program. So it's the housing first model. So housing, regardless of barriers, is in a nutshell. And there's so much more involved with housing first, but in a nutshell, that's what that means. And so HUD has set forth the income guideline of 80% now, so 50 to 80% of the area median income, which is astronomical for. So they've set that for housing first programs, and now it's starting to pick up nationwide, because they see that there's a housing crisis in America, and there is a greater need for at least 50 to 80%.
of their income,
Yes.
medium income. Okay. We talked a little bit about the eligibility requirements for KIBOIS services for veterans. You said earlier on reserve, the reserve branch, they only have to have 1 day of active duty for the reserve, but then the National Guard doesn't count as far as that 1 day of active duty.
So National Guard, unless they were deployed by presidential order, they unfortunately do not qualify.
Okay. But the Army Reserve does qualify, which is 1 day.
If they were active duty training for those purposes.
Okay.
Otherwise, and I don't know the full details because that just recently came out. But active duty training for reserves is acceptable.
Okay. Does the program help pay for utilities and rent?
That is one of our that is one of our priorities. So, how do you solve homelessness? You give them homes, and so that's a little bit complicated. But once we enroll them into our program, the housing searches begin, and so we do have a housing navigator on our staff, and she and along with the case worker that works with them, our goal is to help them find supportive, stable housing, and so we'll help them locate housing, and then we will pay the first month's rent and utilities, and then there's time-limited payments after that, and so it's anywhere, depending on their area median income, their AMI, it's anywhere from 6 months to 9 months.
Okay, so depending on their medium income, it's anywhere from 6 to 9 months
Yes.
that they would help provide utilities and rent.
Yes. Now, if their income is lower than 50%, 50 to 30%, they're eligible for up to 9 months. Now, that being said, we're not going to hold them to that 9 months. The goal of the program is stability, so we're going to teach them how to become housing stable within that 6 to 9 months. So we front load their services, so we'll pay for the full amount, and then if they have an income, we're going to teach them how to cost share. There's a lot of people out there that have never used a budget before. Wow. And so it's our job to help them guide them with the resources and link them up to the resources for that.
Do you all help them find jobs?
Yes,
Do you?
yes. Matter of fact, we use our area resources for job searches. Here in Henryetta, they have the HVRP program.
Okay.
That is a valuable resource for us. That we also have our DevOps at the Work Ready Oklahoma. That we can link them as well, and as well as they are required if they're at work, if they need work, then what they can do is they can look for jobs on their own. Of course, that's the ultimate goal of the program. But there's also resources like Work Ready and HVRP and just what have you that can assist with those. So if they need training or anything like that, those organizations can provide that.
Okay, and you said HVRP is right here in Henryetta?
Yes.
Okay, that's awesome.
It's through the Creek Nation.
Okay, through Creek Nation. All right.
They're a Work Ready program as well.
All right. And then what kind of transportation services does KIBOIS provide?
So on that particular issue, because KIBOIS has so many programs, we have the CATS program. And so I'm going to refer you to Charlotte Sloan. Okay. She is the director of the CATS program, and that number is 918-967-3325. But we do utilize CATS a lot. And so specifically for veterans, if they need a ride somewhere, if they need a ride to a medical appointment, if they're going that way, those services are usually free.
Okay.
But my advice is to contact your local CATS company to get more information about that.
Okay. What kind of health care services does KIBOIS provide?
Well, we don't provide health services in particular. However, I do want to explain that we do have a healthcare navigator on staff. And so when we meet a person, they either do have health care or they don't have health care. And a lot of the times they don't have health care. And so it's our job to link them to that healthcare navigator. And so immediately we start looking into their healthcare needs and meet them where they're at in life. And so with the healthcare need, we basically will say, do you qualify for Medicaid? or do you qualify for VA healthcare? If they don't have VA healthcare, it's our job to link them to those sources and get them into the right way. Sometimes, veterans have an other than honorable discharge and they don't qualify for healthcare, or they might have a bad conduct discharge. And so there's something called the back door. And so we have to link them to VA benefits first. And then once they get linked into VA benefits, then they qualify for VA healthcare. And so it's a little process, and it's a lengthy process, but it's worth it. And that's for VA healthcare. In the meantime, what we'll do is we'll link them to, if they're income eligible, we'll link them to the Medicaid services or healthcare marketplace, whatever the need is.
Okay, and then the other way to get help is through the veteran service officers. So
Yes.
they can do if you've never filed a VA claim, they can file your VA claim and possibly have your condition service connected
Yes.
after the VA evaluates your packet. But that's a lot of one resources that veterans aren't aware of. To contact the veteran service officer, and they can help you do the paperwork. And I'm a veteran service officer for Henryetta, and I work for the DAV out of Krebs, but my office is in Henryetta. So if you do need veteran service officer help, you can call me at 479-414-0952. On the temporary financial assistance that KIBOIS provides, do they provide moving companies or child care services, anything like that?
Yeah, and let me explain that a little bit. So that falls under one of our many services that we provide. Now, it's not a guaranteed service. The one service that is guaranteed for SSVF is case management.
Okay.
But with that becomes one of the biggest services that we do have under case management is temporary financial assistance. For example, rent and utilities is one of them, and then we do have a plethora of other financial services such as transportation needs. So transportation needs is basically if they have a vehicle, they have insurance, they have everything that they need. Then what we'll do is we can pay for like a service or something. We can also provide bus passes.
Okay.
And so that is one of the things that we can do. We can provide moving expenses if they don't have any way to move their stuff. So
Okay.
we can either, and it kind of works a couple of different ways. We can either do the moving expenses, or we can provide 3 months of storage, whatever fits, and then we'll use community resources. And usually, it's a veteran that'll help. We will link them to a veteran resource for that moving expense if we have to do storage.
Okay, that's awesome. What type of legal services does KIBOIS offer to veterans or their dependents?
So I'm going to talk about the beginning. So back in the beginning of the program, we could do a lot. I mean, we could do a plethora. They have streamlined it a little bit, and so now it's more focused towards housing needs. And so because we are a housing first agency, so it's focused on evictions, expungements, you name it. And so what we'll do is we do have an attorney on our, I wouldn't say on our staff, but he is a contracted attorney. And so it's actually my job as the special program supervisor to link it. So if the case manager has a legal need for their client, they reach me. They'll discuss it with me, and then I will link them to our attorney, and then I will explain what our need is, and then he'll set up a consultation with them.
Okay.
And then that's going to be a separate fund other than financial assistance. It's its own fund in itself.
Okay.
And there's a lot of money in that too, because there's a lot of need for it.
Yeah. I had just had a veteran call me this week. He was at a job, and he asked for a temporary leave of absence, and now they're trying to fire him, and I didn't know who to tell him to call. I think there's a number called Lawyers for Heroes I gave him, but I didn't know who to really tell him to call about that situation because they're trying to fire him now, even though they approved a temporary leave of absence. So, okay. And then I think you already mentioned this about where the offices are located. You said they're in how many counties?
We are in 24 counties in this side of Oklahoma.
Okay. gave us the number to call. Can you give that number again as far as who they
Sure.
can call for assistance?
918-681-7525. And then what will happen is somebody will answer the phone. It's usually our office manager, but if she's busy, then somebody will answer the phone. And then if you're a veteran that's homeless or at risk of becoming homeless, then we will take your information down, and then a caseworker will give you a call within the day, and then we will kind of find out where you're at, and then we'll schedule something with you.
Okay, and then we talked a little bit about the child care services.
Sure.
What kind of financial assistance do they provide for that?
So that'll fall under our temporary financial assistance. Now here in Oklahoma, we haven't had a really great need for that kind of service. Not that the need isn't there. Now I've been doing this for 10 years, and there's only one person that's actually accessing that, and because we have programs like DHS that provide that. And
Okay.
So we've always just referred to that, but do know that service is there if it is needed. And we've discussed that, and we have a monthly staffing where we discuss those needs. And that one, it sometimes comes up, but then there's always something that some other program that we can link them to that takes that over, and which is the goal anyway, is we want them to use the community.
So, okay, I didn't know that the DHS provided child care assistance.
Yes, they do.
Okay, well, that's an awesome benefit, too. Is there anything else you want to tell us about the KIBOIS program?
Well, so like I said, we have been around. This program has been around since 2013, and I want to tell you that I worked in mental health before that, and I did feel like I was accomplishing something in mental health, but I felt like I was accomplishing more. My family, a lot of my family are veterans, and so I wanted to be in the military as well. And so, unfortunately, I broke my elbow in high school, and I couldn't participate in the military because the recruiter said, "Well, you can't do PT." I said, "Oh, darn it!" But when I found this job, I found that it was very rewarding. And matter of fact, the first person I housed was actually here in Henryetta. And so, and I was like, after I housed him, I've beamed full of pride, and I said, well, I actually did something for this guy. And it's amazing that the things that you can do. Because, in the world of housing, when somebody doesn't have anything, they have nothing but the shirt off their back, and you make that happen for them, it's just an overwhelming experience.
I understand. That's how I feel when I'm helping veterans do the paperwork for their VA benefits. A lot of times they don't know the process, they don't know the procedure, they don't know what form to put the conditions on, and they don't know how to get that medical evidence that they need to get awarded their percentage that they truly deserve, because they served their time in the military. So that is a rewarding thing for me. I volunteer to do that. I'm retired military, and I know the process of how that works. Thank you very much for coming down and telling us about your program, which is highly beneficial to veterans and their dependents. We are the Guardians of Service program, so if you have any organization or any information that you want to put out, just give me a call. I'm Tricia from the DAV and VFW, and again, my number is 479-414-0952. Thank you for watching our program today.